I think recently you've also teamed up with Daryl Davis. Is that correct?
We have, yeah. Daryl and I went on Rogan's podcast the other week and talked about this paper that we just wrote called The Censorship Effect, which is 80 pages of peer-reviewed research. We teamed up with a handful of PhDs and some de-radicalization experts and free speech enthusiasts and wrote this paper to essentially bring together the empirical data that censorship makes radicalization worse. That it's sort of clouded in all of these good intentions, but when you actually dive into the research, it is there are essentially no benefits long term.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've all probably recognised at this point. Everybody knows about how it's kind of an overused term at this point, but everybody knows about the echo chambers, and these are legitimate things. I understand that obviously censorship is possibly the biggest thing that you guys at Minds talk about, and is that purely on principle, or is it more to do with the de-radicalization element of opening up these ideas to the public?
Sure. I mean, I think I was chatting with Michael Malice a little bit, and he brought up, and we mentioned this in the beginning of the paper, that radicalization is not like good or bad necessarily. I think it typically there's a negative connotation around it, but like there are plenty of things that you can get radical about that can be very healthy. So it's not, the goal isn't de-radicalization. I mean, the goal is better dialogue and discourse, but like we're not out to social engineer. So I want to kind of make that clear, that there's no like agenda in terms of how we think people should think. However, I think we're trying to increase tolerance for having the hard conversations that are necessary, and being tolerant of extreme speech, because we know that the only way for actual racist speech to change is to engage it. And that's what Daryl proves. Anyone who doesn't know, Daryl is a Black man who famously got over 200 members of the KKK to leave the KKK. And he did that how? Just by befriending them. Who would have thought that if you are nice to people and listen to them and engage them, that, they might listen to you?
Yeah, I agree. Daryl is kind of an inspiration for a lot of people in that sense, because he proves that if you can just talk to people, that you can change their minds, which obviously minds being the primary focus of the of the platform. I'm aware that you guys started in 2011 and launched in 2015. Just for anybody who's not aware, would you mind giving us a quick run through of the journey up until now, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. I mean, early, we didn't really have much of a platform until 2015. So that was more R&D in those, formative years, and really ripping apart databases and kind of getting something that can actually scale. Then in 2015, we launched our first mobile app, and we had a large wave of growth in reaction to the Snowden revelations. There was all this activity around Anonymous. People were looking for more privacy-centric apps because, particularly because of the Snowden revelations, realizing that the NSA is, kind of hooked in to all of the major social networks. So that was an interesting growth wave, because it was, lots of liberals, progressives, conservatives. It was everybody, because that oddly, surveillance seems to be the issue that is cross spectrum in terms of, politically, people seem to agree that they don't want surveillance. The speech issue is obviously different, but you will find lots of people on both the left and the right, very upset about the surveillance. So then we kind of are moving into Trump's election, and then with Trump's election, speech, in my opinion, unfortunately starts to become politicized. Traditionally, I think, we all know that free speech is not really a political issue. It's just sort of a general principle of, Western democracy. And, but then, for better, for worse, it did become political, and we had all these free speech wars online. We're still in the midst of them, And we saw lots of growth kind of during that whole phase when the censorship really started expanding on big tech. And it has really reached proportions that I don't even know if any of us would expect. I remember when Carl first joined, and it was more so around some hate speech stuff that, you know, a lot of people were getting banned. You know, whoever defines that, no one really knows. And but now with all the misinformation, you know, the misinformation bucket of censorship is just so massive in encompassing of essentially anything that they want. And so, you know, our purpose with the paper in the research is to ground, you know, this argument about free speech and make it less emotional. You know, this shouldn't be like, look, we all agree that there's nasty stuff on the internet. That's not you will not find a single person on the left or the right who thinks that there's not nasty content and, you know, crazy people that they don't want to engage with. But let's remove the emotion and understand what actually makes the internet a better place, what actually creates healthier communities long term. And that is free speech. That is proven historically, and it's proven in many, many studies.